This is the story of the infamous Dred versus Sanford, which took place in 1857. His story started off at Alabama, where he was a former slave. Next, he was transported to Missouri, who was sold off to another slave owner, John Emerson. John then took him to Wisconsin, where he met his wife. Keep in mind, Wisconsin was a free state due to the Missouri Compromise. The Missouri Compromise separated the states into either the free states or the slave states. They were separated with 3630 parallel. During this time period, there were 18 free states and 15 slave states. Scott and his wife were later taken back to Missouri, where he filed a freedom lawsuit in 1846. Scott used the argument, once free, always free, meaning that because he was once on free soil, he was then free for the rest of his life. In 1857, the Supreme Court came to a decision. However, the court ruled against him on a 3-point basis. The first being the blacks had no rights in federal courts as they were seen as property. The second being that slave states no longer had to honor the once free, always free principle. And the last being that the court ruled the Missouri Compromise was unconstitutional because it took away property, specifically slaves. After this ruling, Dred Scott went back to the slavery institution. Long after, Scott's original owner's children grew up to be anti-slavery, bought Scott and his family, and freed them.
Here are the effects of the decision of 1857. The first was that the saying, "all men are created equal," was deemed false due to the fact that a free black man was not viewed equally as a free white man. The decision of the Supreme Court angered many abolitionists, and it triggered events such as the John Brown raid. A final effect was that Southerners felt very enthusiastic about the growth and promotion of slavery and the idea that slaves can be taken everywhere without any consequence. The Dred Scott case of 1857 is a groundbreaking event that led to the Civil War for several reasons. The first was that the Northerners were very upset that their abolitionist work had practically gone down the drain with his ruling, and the blacks would never be viewed as equals. African Americans were also now inclined to fight for the Union and for their freedom, as they had been disregarded by the Supreme Court and by the South. And finally, Northerners felt the war was the only way to stop the growth of slavery in the South. To conclude, while the Dred Scott decision may have been very controversial in 1857, now many historians can agree that it was one of the worst rulings in Supreme Court history.